Fear. It is the silent force that chains us, a shadow that moves with us, whispering doubts, painting illusions of failure, rejection, and pain. It tells us you can't. It tells us stay small, stay safe. But is fear reality, or is it just a thought, an unexamined belief given power by our attention? A man stands at the edge of a cliff, his heart pounding. Below him a vast unknown. His mind screams, "Step back." But what if, instead of retreating, he simply watched, observed? What if he stepped beyond thought and into presence? Nelson Mandela, imprisoned for 27 years, knew fear intimately. Every day in that cell, uncertainty loomed. But fear did not define him. He did not resist it, nor did he obey it. He allowed it to exist without being consumed by it. And in doing so, he discovered something profound. Fear loses its power when you no longer identify with it. Fear is not the enemy. Resistance to fear is. Fear is only energy. When you fight it, you make it stronger. When you observe it, it transforms. Think of a child learning to swim. The moment before they step into the water, their mind screams, "It's too deep, I will sink," but then, one breath, one step forward, and suddenly they float. The fear was never real, only the mind's projection of what could happen, not what is happening. How many times in your life have you let fear decide for you? The love you never expressed, the dream you never pursued, the words you never spoke. Not because you couldn't, but because fear whispered, "What if you fail?" And so you wait. You wait for the fear to go away, not realizing that fear does not dissolve before action. It dissolves through action. Muhammad Ali knew this. Before every fight, his hands shook, but he did not wait for courage. He acted, and courage followed. Fear will never leave you, but you don't have to obey it. Breathe, observe it, step forward with it, because on the other side of fear you will meet the person you were always meant to be. This speech is designed to hit deep, with real-life examples and a mindful, present-moment perspective like Eckhart Tolle. Want any tweaks? Fear is not reality. It is a projection of the mind. It masquerades as truth, whispering worst-case scenarios, weaving illusions of failure, rejection, and pain. But what is fear really? It is nothing more than a thought, an unexamined belief given power by attention. A child stands at the edge of a swimming pool, toes curling over the edge, heart pounding. In their mind, a story plays. The water is too deep. I will sink. I will drown. Yet the moment they take a step forward, something miraculous happens. The water holds them. They float. The fear, so vivid just seconds before, vanishes like mist in sunlight. What changed? Not reality, only perception. The danger never existed. Only the mind's fearful anticipation of what could happen, not what was happening. The mind is a master storyteller, crafting narratives designed to keep you safe. But safety is not always truth. Consider the person who hesitates to speak in a meeting, fearing embarrassment. In their mind, they imagine judgmental stares, silent criticism, whispers of disapproval. But in reality, people are often too absorbed in their own thoughts to judge. The fear was never about the meeting. It was about the mind's ability to fabricate an outcome that had not even occurred. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years behind bars, facing an uncertain future. Fear could have consumed him. The fear of never seeing freedom, never reclaiming his life. But in his own words, I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. He realized that fear was not a concrete truth, but a creation of the mind. He saw through the illusion, and in doing so, he transcended it. Think of how often fear dictates the choices we make. How many people stay in unfulfilling jobs, toxic relationships, or stagnant situations, not because they cannot leave, but because their minds paint terrifying pictures of what might happen if they do. The mind tells them, what if you fail? What if you regret it? What if things get worse? But none of these outcomes are real. They are mere thoughts, projections without substance. Fear thrives in the unknown, feeding off imagined consequences. But what happens when we look at fear directly without reacting to it? It loses its power. The moment we see fear as just a passing thought rather than an undeniable truth, we begin to break free from its grip. The mind will always generate fears. It is part of its nature. But fear is not reality. Reality exists only in this moment, here and now. The water will hold you. The world will not collapse if you speak. The future is not written in stone. Step beyond the illusion, and you will see fear was never real to begin with. Resistance to fear gives it power. The more you push against it, the stronger it becomes. Fear is like quicksand. The harder you struggle, the deeper you sink. It is not the fear itself that traps you, but your resistance to it, your unwillingness to let it exist without reacting. Imagine someone standing at the edge of a stage, preparing to speak in front of a crowd. Their palms sweat, their heartbeat pounds in their ears, and their mind races with doubts. What if I forget my words? What if they judge me? The fear is there, rising like a wave, and the instinct is to fight it, to push it away, to force confidence. But in doing so, the fear only amplifies. The more they resist, the more the fear takes hold. Now imagine instead that they do nothing. They simply notice the fear. They allow the sweaty palms, the racing heart, the nervous energy. They do not label it as bad or wrong. They just let it be. Something shifts. The fear does not vanish instantly, but it loses its grip. It no longer controls them. By allowing it to exist without resistance, they take away its power. This is the secret few understand. Fear itself is not the problem. It is the inner struggle against fear that makes it overwhelming. When you fight fear, you become entangled in it. When you accept its presence without letting it dictate your actions, you free yourself. Think of a surfer riding a massive wave. If they panic and fight against the force of the water, they will be thrown under. But if they surrender to it, move with it instead of against it, they find balance. Fear works the same way. You cannot overpower it by force, but you can move with it, allowing it to rise and fall without becoming consumed by it. Michael Jordan, one of the greatest athletes of all time, openly spoke about how he felt fear before big games. He never tried to resist it or make it go away. Instead, he acknowledged it, embraced it, and turned it into focus. By not resisting fear, he transformed it into fuel. Look at any moment in your life where fear held you back, Was it the fear itself that stopped you? Or was it the way you reacted to it? Most of the time, it is not fear that paralyzes us. It is our resistance to it, our desperate attempt to avoid discomfort, but growth is never comfortable. The next time fear arises, do not fight it. Do not push it away. Do not make it the enemy. Just watch it. Allow it to be there without judgment. The moment you stop resisting, you will realize something powerful. Fear only has control over you when you give it control. Let go, and fear will no longer lead. You will. Courage does not come before action, it comes through action. Most people wait for the fear to subside before they take the leap. They wait to feel confident, strong, and ready. But the truth is, that moment never comes. Fear does not disappear before you act. It dissolves only after you step forward. A young athlete stands on the track, heart pounding before the race. She looks at her competition and feels doubt creeping in. Am I good enough? What if I fail? She waits for the fear to fade, for courage to arrive and carry her forward. But courage does not come. The fear remains. And in that moment she has a choice. Wait and let the fear decide, or step forward with the fear still present. She takes a deep breath and moves. The moment her foot crosses the starting line, something shifts. Fear no longer controls her. She is in motion, and with every stride, courage emerges. This is how fear works. It tricks you into believing you need to be fearless first. It convinces you that boldness must come before the act itself. But if you look at anyone who has achieved something great, you will see the same pattern. They did not act because they had no fear. They acted despite it. And through action, their fear lost power. Muhammad Ali, one of the greatest boxers of all time, did not walk into the ring fearless. He was nervous before fights, but he never let that stop him. He knew that waiting for fear to leave would mean waiting forever. Instead, he acted, and through action, confidence was built. He stepped forward with fear and found courage on the other side. How often have you stood at the edge of the decision, waiting for fear to fade? How many times have you delayed a dream, a conversation, or a leap forward because you thought you needed to feel ready? Readiness is an illusion. It is a comfort we seek but never find. The only way to be ready is to begin. A musician stands backstage before a performance. A writer hesitates before sharing their work. An entrepreneur debates launching a new idea. The common thread, they all feel fear. But the ones who succeed are the ones who step forward anyway. Action rewires the mind. When you move despite fear, your brain learns, I can do this, I am capable. But if you hesitate, fear grows stronger. It gains evidence that it was right, that you should not have tried. The next time fear grips you, do not wait. Do not ask it for permission. Take the first step. Speak the words, make the move. Even if your voice shakes, even if your hands tremble, even if doubt lingers. Because the truth is, courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision that fear will not make the choice for you, and the only way to find it is to act. Fear is just energy. Transform it, don't obey it. Most people see fear as a stop sign, a force that signals danger, something to be avoided at all costs. But fear itself is neutral. It is raw energy, neither good nor bad. It is what you do with that energy that determines whether it holds you back or propels you forward. Imagine a musician about to step on stage. Their hands are shaking, their heartbeat is racing, and their mind is filled with thoughts of failure. Most people interpret these sensations as a reason to retreat. I must not be ready. I am too nervous. But what if those same feelings, the adrenaline, the heightened awareness, the rush of energy, were not fear but excitement? The body does not distinguish between the two. Fear and excitement feel the same. Only the mind labels. What if instead of resisting fear, they harnessed it? What if instead of seeing it as a barrier, they used it as fuel? Every great performer, athlete, or leader understands this shift. The fastest runners in the world do not wait for their hearts to stop pounding before they sprint. They use that energy to push themselves forward. The best public speakers do not wait for their nerves to disappear before stepping onto the stage. They channel that nervous energy into passion, into presence, into connection. Look at someone like Serena Williams. Before every major match, she feels the nerves, the tension, the weight of expectation. She could let that fear paralyze her, but instead she transforms it into focus, into aggression, into precision. She does not obey fear, she uses it. The problem is never fear itself. It is the belief that fear is something negative, something that must go away before you take action. But fear is just an impulse, a surge of energy meant to sharpen your senses, to heighten your awareness. If you stop seeing it as an obstacle and start using it as a resource, everything changes. Think of a fire. Left uncontrolled, it can burn everything down, but when harnessed, it becomes a source of warmth, power, and transformation. Fear is the same. If you let it control you, it consumes you, but if you learn to direct it, it becomes the very thing that drives you beyond your limits. Many people believe they must eliminate fear to succeed, but the truth is, you only need to shift your relationship with it. The next time you feel fear rising, pause. Instead of pushing it away, ask yourself, how can I use this? Turn anxiety into excitement. Turn doubt into curiosity. Turn hesitation into movement. Fear does not have to be your master. It can be your ally. It can be the fire that fuels your greatest achievements. You just have to stop running from it and start channeling it. And when you do, you will realize that fear was never the enemy. It was the energy you needed all along. History's greatest achievers acted despite their fears. Fear is not unique to the weak, the uncertain, or the inexperienced. It visits everyone, even the strongest, the boldest, and the most accomplished. The difference between those who succeed and those who remain stuck is not the absence of fear, but the refusal to let fear dictate their choices. Every great leader, athlete, and visionary has felt the weight of fear pressing down on them, yet they moved forward anyway. Think of Thomas Edison. He failed over 1,000 times before successfully inventing the light bulb. Fear could have convinced him to quit, to believe that failure was final, that his efforts were in vain, but instead of surrendering to fear, he saw failure as a lesson. He continued despite the fear of wasting time, despite the fear of judgment. And because he acted in the presence of fear, The world was transformed by his persistence. Oprah Winfrey was fired from her first television job. She was told she was unfit for TV, that she lacked what it took to succeed in the industry. Fear could have stopped her in that moment, convinced her that the critics were right. But she did not listen. She acted in spite of her fears and built one of the most successful media empires in history. She did not wait for certainty. She did not wait for approval. She moved forward even when fear was present. Michael Jordan, one of the greatest basketball players of all time, was once cut from his high school team. Can you imagine the doubt, the humiliation, the fear of trying again? Many would have given up, convinced themselves they were not good enough. But Jordan took that fear and used it as fuel. He worked harder, trained longer, and pushed beyond his limits. Fear did not disappear, but his actions became bigger than his fear. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison, not knowing if he would ever walk free again. Every day he had a choice, to let fear consume him or to keep his vision alive. He chose the latter. When he was finally released, he did not emerge bitter or broken. He emerged as a leader, guiding South Africa out of the darkness of apartheid. He later said, "I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it." His story is proof that even in the face of overwhelming fear, action can shape history. Fear will always be present before something great. It is there before breakthroughs, before transformations, before extraordinary moments. But history proves that fear does not have to stop you. Those who change the world are not those who never feel afraid, but those who refuse to let fear hold them back. The next time fear rises within you, remember this: the people you admire, the ones who built legacies, felt the same fear you feel now. The only difference is they move forward anyway. Observation creates detachment from fear. Fear feels all-consuming when you are inside it, when it grips your mind and tightens around your body like an unshakable force. But fear only has power over you when you identify with it, when you believe the voice in your head telling you to retreat, to stay small, to avoid risk. The moment you step back and simply observe it, something profound happens. Fear loses its control. Picture a storm rolling in over the ocean. The waves crash, the wind howls, and from the shore it looks overwhelming, even terrifying. But imagine rising above it, looking down from the sky. From that higher perspective, you see the storm for what it is: temporary, moving, passing. This is the same with fear. When you are in it, it feels like the only reality. But when you observe it from a distance, you realize it is just a passing emotion, a movement of energy in the mind and body, nothing more. A person about to give a speech feels fear rise within them. Their heart races, their hands tremble, their mind floods with self-doubt. If they believe the fear, they will think, "I am not ready, I will fail, I should not do this." But if they step back for just a moment and observe, they will notice something surprising. The fear is just a sensation, just thoughts coming and going. The body reacts, but it does not mean danger is present. They take a breath and realize, this fear is not me, it is just passing through. And in that realization, fear loses its grip. The great philosopher Jiddu Krishnamurti once revealed his secret to inner peace. I don't mind what happens. This is the power of detachment, not the absence of fear, but the refusal to let it define you. The moment you observe fear rather than react to it, you step outside its influence. You become the sky watching the storm, untouched by the chaos below. Look at athletes before a big competition. Some let their fear consume them and they freeze under pressure. Others acknowledge the fear, observe it, and let it pass. They do not fight it or feed it with more thoughts. They simply notice it and keep moving. This is why the greatest performers remain calm in high-stakes situations. They understand that fear is not something to be feared. It is just an experience like any other. Consider a tightrope walker high above the ground. If they focus on fear, they will shake and fall. But if they remain fully present, simply noticing the movement of their body, the tension in their muscles, and the rhythm of their breath, they find balance. They succeed not by eliminating fear, but by refusing to become entangled in it. The next time fear rises, do not resist it and do not obey it. Simply watch it. Let it come and let it go. And in that moment of awareness, you will discover something extraordinary. Fear was never controlling you. You were just holding on too tightly. Fear is an illusion created by the mind. It feels real. It grips your chest, makes your heart pound, fills your thoughts with worst-case scenarios. But if you look closely, you will see that fear is not a force outside of you. It is something generated from within, a projection of the mind. It is not reality. It is a story your mind tells, a future that has not happened, a shadow that disappears the moment you shine light on it. Imagine walking down a dimly lit street at night. You see a figure in the distance, standing motionless. Your breath catches, your mind races. Is this a threat? Am I in danger? Your body tenses, adrenaline surges. But as you take another step, the light shifts, and you realize it was just a tree, its shape distorted by the dark. The fear vanishes in an instant. Nothing changed except your perception. The threat never existed. Only your mind made it real. This is the nature of fear. It thrives in the unknown, in uncertainty. It tells stories, builds illusions, makes shadows seem like monsters. But when you bring awareness to it, when you step closer instead of retreating, you see it for what it is. Nothing more than a trick of the mind. A child standing at the edge of a swimming pool hesitates before jumping in. The water looks cold, deep, unfamiliar. Fear takes hold, but the moment they leap, something shifts. They feel the water rush around them, and suddenly they are swimming, laughing, realizing that the fear was never real. It was just an illusion, an idea that existed only in their mind. Think of every moment in your life when fear has held you back, the times you did not speak up, the opportunities you let slip away, the dreams you postponed because fear whispered, "What if you fail?" But when you finally faced those fears, what happened? Did the world end? Did disaster strike? Or did you realize after taking that step that the fear was unfounded, that it had no real substance? Steve Jobs once said, "Remembering that you are going to die is the best way I know to avoid the trap of thinking you have something to lose." Fear convinces you that risk is dangerous, that failure is unbearable, that stepping into the unknown is a threat. But in reality, the only thing you ever lose by letting fear control you is time, time that could have been spent living, creating, experiencing, becoming,